two of them were already dead, and one was within an hour of taking his last breath.
Wow.
And that rocked his world. That rocked his world.
Yeah.
And he went away from that experience realizing that this was wrong, and this was a tragedy of just immense proportions.
Yeah.
And he didn't know what to do, and he really felt God kind of say to him, Dave, first his reaction was, God, surely to God there is someone that you could send who could come and solve this problem. And he really felt very strongly that God turned to him and said, well, Dave, you're here.
Yeah.
And for the next 9 months he struggled with that word.
Yeah.
And really it kept coming up, and finally realized that no, he did have to do something. And what that started was the journey of international China concern. And so in 1993, so that was like into January, so it was kind of in the autumn of 1993, Dave took his first team in. Some people from the UK and some elsewhere, and then they all went in and they worked for a period of time. I think it wasn't actually that same welfare center. That eventually led to them working in a city called Nanning for a short period of time, but and then eventually moving into the city of Changsha, which is the capital of Hunan province. And that's where we've been now for the last 20 years. Is working in Changsha and providing care for children who've been abandoned because they have disabilities. So like I said, it was everything from very, very simple disabilities that are merely physical, like things like cerebral palsy, where some of these children have absolutely no intellectual disability whatsoever. And it's just literally, it's a physical issue that they have to deal with, who have been abandoned because, like in all countries, children with disabilities are extremely expensive to care for. I believe the statistic in like the Western world is that it costs about $5,000 a month to care for a child with disabilities. And places like Canada, the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom, Western, Europe, the Western world, there are a lot of government programs. There are a lot of supports available for families to be able to care for those children. In China, despite its communist name, it's pretty much you're on your own.
Probably 2/3 of the world.
Yeah, and you've got to somewhere. I mean, officially there's 1.3 billion people, but they actually say that there's probably, because of various rules like the one-child policy and just the expense of things and a lot of rural poor people, that there's probably actually another half of that population again are undocumented people living in China. So there could be 2 billion people living in that country, 600 million of which don't technically exist. And a lot of these people have like disabilities. We estimate that there are 60 million disabled people in China. So take the population of Canada, double it, and we're all disabled. And that is how many people there are disabled in China. And just there are thousands of children born every day, and many of them had disabilities and are abandoned by their parents. So I can go into something.
The need is huge.
Yeah, the need is huge. I mean, there's just various reasons as to why that happens. Like I mentioned the one-child policy before. That's one factor. A lot of family is a very, very, it's a major value of Asian culture, and families are there to support the older relatives as they age, because there isn't a social safety net. There isn't the old age pension that people can rely on. Now, even Canada, we can't rely on it, but that's. But it's even more dire there. Unless you make your own money or you pay for your own way, there is no sort of support. So what happens is, so that's one factor. So you want a healthy child. If you're only allowed one, you're gonna, especially in the cities. Now, in urban areas you can have more, rural areas you can have more. In urban areas, the law is you can have one. If you have more than one, you have to pay a fine. And the fine can be several years more than people can afford in a lifetime. And so what ends up happening, like I said, these undocumented. Sometimes either the kids are born and they're not registered, they're unpeople. Or the families will have them, but they will give them up and start over again. And it's a very sad sort of tale. The other aspect is you get a lot of family pressure. So many families will say there's also a lot, and that's coupled with a lack of education about what disabilities are in China. There are superstitions about disabled people. There's a lot of shame that comes potentially.